Confident Speaking Podcast, where you can learn to speak English with natural rhythm, real confidence, and fluency.
Hey there, amazing listeners. Welcome to another episode of the Confident Speaking Podcast. I'm Julia, and I'm so happy you're here with us today. This is where we dive into practical English learning mixed with real confidence-building tips. And trust me, today's conversation is going to be something special.
Hey everyone, I'm David, and I'm so excited to be here with Julia today. This podcast has honestly changed how I think about communication and confidence.
Aw, thank you, David. For those of you who are new here, David has been on this amazing journey of improving his English while building his business confidence over the past year. And David, I have to ask you something that I think will hook everyone today.
Sure, what's that?
Picture this. You're at a networking event. Someone walks up to you with a friendly smile and asks, "So, what do you do?" You have 30 seconds, maybe less, to explain your business in a way that's interesting, clear, and memorable. But here's the thing. Your mind goes completely blank. You know your product inside and out, but suddenly you can't find the right words. Does this sound familiar?
Oh, wow. Julia, you just described my worst nightmare. I was literally at a networking event last week, and this exact thing happened to me. This guy asked what I do, and I just froze. I started stumbling over words, trying to sound professional, but I ended up confusing both of us.
That's exactly what we're talking about today, David. And here's what might surprise you. You don't need perfect English or fancy vocabulary to give an amazing pitch. In fact, the most powerful pitches are often the simplest ones.
That's so true. I used to think I needed to use big words and complicated sentences to sound professional. But honestly, that just made me more nervous and harder to understand.
Exactly. So today, we're diving deep into how to pitch your product or service using simple, clear English that actually connects with people. We'll cover everything from handling those nerve-wracking moments to telling your story in a way that sticks with people long after the conversation ends.
And the best part? We'll keep it practical and real. No business jargon, no complicated formulas. Just honest advice that actually works in the real world.
Let's start with something I think everyone can relate to. There's this moment, maybe you're at a coffee shop, a networking event, or even just talking to a friend, when someone asks you to explain what you do or what you're working on, and suddenly your heart starts racing.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like your brain short circuits, isn't it? All those clear thoughts you had just vanish into thin air. I used to get so tongue-tied that I'd either give a one-word answer or go off on a tangent that made no sense.
Exactly. And here's the thing. It's not because we don't know our stuff. It's because we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to sound professional, to use the right words to impress people. But that pressure is what kills our natural ability to communicate.
You've hit the nail on the head, David. When we try too hard to sound impressive, we lose our authenticity. And people can sense that. They connect with real, genuine communication much more than fancy business speak.
I learned this the hard way. I spent months crafting what I thought was the perfect elevator pitch, full of industry terms and complex explanations. But every time I used it, people would nod politely and then quickly change the subject. It wasn't connecting.
That's such a common mistake. We think we need to sound like we're giving a TED Talk every time we mention our business. But the truth is, the best pitches feel like conversations. They're warm, they're human, and they make people curious to know more.
And here's something that changed everything for me. I started thinking about pitching as storytelling instead of selling. When you tell a story, you relax. You become more natural. You use language that feels comfortable to you.
That's beautiful, David, because at the end of the day, every product or service starts with a story, doesn't it? A problem someone faced, a solution they discovered, a way to make life a little bit better. When we remember that, pitching becomes less about performance and more about sharing.
You know what else I've noticed? The most successful entrepreneurs I know, they don't sound like they're reading from a script. They sound like they're sharing something they genuinely care about. There's this spark in their voice, this excitement that's contagious.
Absolutely. And that spark comes from passion, not perfection. I remember meeting this woman at a conference who was developing an app for busy parents. She didn't use any fancy marketing terms. She just said, I created this because I was tired of feeling like a terrible mom when I forgot to pack my kids' lunch again. That vulnerability, that honesty, it made me want to know more.
That's such a powerful example. She wasn't trying to impress anyone with her business vocabulary. She was just being real about her experience. And that's what made her memorable.
And here's something I want our listeners to really understand. That moment when your heart starts racing, when you feel like you're about to mess up, that's actually your body preparing you to connect with someone. It's excitement, not just fear.
That's such a beautiful way to reframe it. Instead of thinking, oh no, I have to perform perfectly, you can think, I have something valuable to share with this person.
Exactly. And you know what? The person you're talking to probably wants you to succeed. They're not sitting there waiting for you to make a mistake. They're hoping you'll share something interesting, something that might help them or someone they know.
That reminds me of something my mentor once told me. He said, David, people don't buy products or services. They buy solutions to their problems and feelings of confidence that those solutions will work. When you approach pitching with that mindset, everything changes.
That's profound because it shifts the focus from how can I sound impressive to how can I help this person understand how I solve problems. And that's a much more natural, comfortable conversation to have.
Let's talk about something that might surprise you. The simpler your language, the more powerful your pitch becomes. I know it sounds counterintuitive, especially when we're trying to sound professional, but hear me out.
This is so true, Julia. I used to think that using complex vocabulary would make me sound smarter, more credible. But I noticed something interesting. The most successful people I know, the ones who really connect with their audiences, they use incredibly simple language.
Exactly. Think about it. When someone explains something in a way that's easy to understand, what happens? You trust them more. You feel like they really get it. Complex language often creates distance between you and your listener.
And there's a psychological reason for this. When people have to work hard to understand what you're saying, they get frustrated. But when your message is clear and simple, they can focus on what really matters, whether they're interested in what you're offering.
Plus, let's be honest, most of us are learning English as a second language. When we try to use words that don't feel natural to us, it shows. We stumble, we hesitate, we lose our confidence. But when we stick to vocabulary we know well, we speak with more conviction.
I love how you put that. There's real power in speaking with conviction. Even if your vocabulary is simple, people respond to confidence and clarity much more than they respond to impressive words.
And here's another thing. Simple language is memorable. When you use clear, everyday words to explain what you do, people remember it. They can even repeat it to others, which is like getting free word-of-mouth marketing.
That's such a great point. I once heard someone explain their business using such simple terms that I found myself telling other people about it later. That's the kind of pitch that sticks with you.
So instead of saying, we provide comprehensive solutions for optimizing operational efficiency, you might say, we help businesses save time and money. Same message, but one version makes people lean in and the other makes them tune out.
You know what's funny? I used to be embarrassed about my accent, about the way I pronounced certain words. I thought it made me sound less professional. But then I realized some of the most successful international speakers and entrepreneurs have strong accents. What matters isn't how you sound, it's how clearly you communicate your ideas.
That's such an important point, David. Your accent, your unique way of expressing things, that's part of your authenticity. And authenticity is what builds trust. I've seen people try so hard to sound native that they lose their natural charm and personality.
Exactly. And here's something I learned from watching TED Talks. The speakers who get standing ovations aren't necessarily the ones with perfect English. They're the ones who communicate with passion and clarity. They use simple words to express complex ideas.
That's so inspiring. And you know what? When you use simple language, you're actually being more inclusive. You're making sure that everyone in your audience can understand and connect with your message, regardless of their English level or background.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. Simple language is generous language. It's saying, I want to make sure you understand this because it's important.
And here's a practical tip for our listeners. When you're preparing to talk about your business, try explaining it to a child first. If a 10-year-old can understand what you do, then adults definitely will. It's a great way to test if your language is clear and simple enough.
I love that exercise. It forces you to strip away all the jargon and get to the heart of what you actually do. And often you discover that the simple version is actually more accurate and honest than the complex one.
Another thing I've noticed is that simple language creates emotional connection. When you say, I help people feel confident about their finances, instead of, I provide comprehensive financial advisory services, you're speaking to feelings, not just facts.
That's so true. And feelings are what motivate people to take action. When someone understands not just what you do, but how it will make them feel, that's when they become interested in working with you.
So remember, everyone, your goal isn't to impress people with your vocabulary. Your goal is to connect with them, to help them understand how you can make their life better. And the clearer and simpler your message, the more powerful that connection becomes.
Now, let's dig into something that I think is the heart of every great pitch, your foundation story. This is the why behind what you do, and it's what makes your pitch memorable and meaningful.
I love that you call it a foundation story, David, because that's exactly what it is, the solid ground that everything else is built on. Your foundation story answers the question, what problem were you trying to solve when you started this?
Right. And here's what makes a foundation story powerful. It's usually personal. Maybe you faced a challenge yourself, or you saw someone you cared about struggling with something. That personal connection is what makes people care about your solution.
And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to be dramatic or over the top. Some of the best foundation stories are quiet and simple, like, I got tired of spending hours looking for reliable childcare, so I created an app that connects parents with trusted babysitters and their neighborhood.
That's perfect, Julia. It's relatable, it's clear, and it immediately helps people understand both the problem and the solution. Plus, it uses language that anyone can understand.
Exactly, and notice how it starts with a feeling. I got tired of. That emotional connection is what hooks people. They think, oh, I felt frustrated like that too.
And here's something I learned. Your foundation story doesn't have to be unique or groundbreaking. It just has to be honest. People connect with authentic experiences, even if they're common ones.
That's so freeing, isn't it? We don't have to pretend we're solving world hunger or curing cancer. Maybe we're just making someone's Tuesday a little bit easier. That's valuable too.
Absolutely. And when you ground your pitch in that foundation story, it gives you something to come back to when you get nervous. Instead of trying to remember a perfect script, you just remember why you started.
You know what I love about foundation stories? They make you human. I remember listening to a woman pitch her cleaning service, and she said, I started this business because I was a single mom working 2 jobs and I never had time to clean my house. I felt embarrassed when neighbors stopped by. That vulnerability, it made everyone in the room root for her.
That's such a powerful example. She wasn't trying to sound like a corporate executive. She was just sharing her truth, and that truth connected with other people who had felt that same embarrassment, that same struggle.
And here's something important. Your foundation story doesn't have to be about you personally. Maybe you started your business because you saw your parents struggle with something or because you noticed a gap in your community. The key is that it comes from a place of genuine care.
That's such a good point. I know someone who started a food delivery service for elderly people because he watched his grandmother become isolated when she couldn't drive anymore. It wasn't his problem directly, but he cared about solving it.
Exactly, and that caring comes through in how he talks about his business. There's warmth there, there's purpose. It's not just about making money, it's about making life better for people he cares about.
And here's another thing about foundation stories. They help you stay motivated when things get tough. When you remember why you started, when you remember the problem you're solving, it gives you strength to keep going.
So true, and they also help you make decisions. When you're clear about your foundation story, you can ask yourself, does this opportunity align with why I started this business? Does it help me solve the problem I care about?
That's brilliant. It's like having a compass that always points you toward your true north.
And for our listeners who are thinking, but my story isn't that interesting, I want to challenge that thought. Every business starts with someone noticing a problem and deciding to do something about it. That decision, that moment when you said, I'm going to try to fix this, that's heroic.
Yes, and you don't have to be the first person to notice the problem. Maybe hundreds of people have started similar businesses, but your story is still unique because it's yours. Your perspective, your approach, your values, those are what make your foundation story special.
And here's a practical tip. When you're telling your foundation story, focus on the emotion, not just the facts. Don't just say, I saw a problem in the market. Say, I felt frustrated when, or I was worried about. Those feelings are what make your story stick.
That's such good advice, because when you share your feelings, you invite other people to share theirs. You create a moment of connection that goes beyond just business.
All right, let's get practical. I want to share a simple structure that works every time, what I call the 3-part pitch. It's so straightforward that you can use it in any situation, whether you have 30 seconds or 5 minutes.
I'm excited to hear this, Julia. Structure is so helpful when you're feeling nervous or when English isn't your first language. It gives you a roadmap to follow.
Exactly. So here are the 3 parts. First, the problem. Second, the solution. Third, the result. That's it. Problem, solution, result. You can remember that, right?
That's beautifully simple. And I bet each part can be just 1 or 2 sentences, which makes it feel less overwhelming.
You've got it. Let's break it down. Part 1, the problem. This is where you connect with your listener's experience. You might say something like, you know how small business owners spend way too much time on paperwork instead of growing their business?
I love that approach. Starting with, you know how, immediately creates common ground. It's like saying, we're on the same team here.
Exactly. Part 2, the solution. This is where you briefly explain what you do. Well, I created software that automates all that paperwork, so it takes care of itself.
And notice how clear that is. No technical jargon, no complex explanations, just a simple statement of what the solution does.
Right. And part 3, the result. This is where you paint a picture of what life looks like after using your product or service. So business owners can focus on what they love, serving their customers and growing their company.
That's powerful because it's not just about features, it's about the transformation. It's about how life gets better.
Exactly. And the whole thing took maybe 20 seconds to say. Problem, solution, result. It's conversational, it's clear, and it leaves people wanting to know more.
But here's what I love about this structure. It's flexible. You can adapt it to any situation. If you're talking to someone who's in a hurry, you can keep each part to 1 sentence. If you have more time, you can expand on each section.
That's such a good point. And you can start with different parts depending on the situation. Sometimes you might begin with the solution if someone asks directly what you do. Other times, you might start with the result if you want to paint a picture of possibility.
I'm thinking about how this works in different cultures, too. In some cultures, people prefer to understand the context before hearing the solution. In others, they want to know the benefit right away. This structure lets you adapt to your audience.
Absolutely. And here's another thing. You can use this structure for different aspects of your business. Maybe you have one version for your main service, another for a specific product, and another for a new program you're launching.
That's brilliant. It's like having a toolkit where each tool serves a different purpose, but they all work the same way.
And let's talk about the language within each part. For the problem section, use words that create empathy. You know how frustrating it is when, or have you ever felt stuck because these phrases invite people to connect with the emotion, not just the facts.
Yes, and for the solution part, focus on simplicity and clarity. Avoid industry jargon. Instead of saying, "We leverage cutting-edge technology," say, "We use smart software," or "We created a simple system."
Perfect. And for the results section, make it about feelings and experiences, not just outcomes. Instead of saying, "You'll increase efficiency by 40%, say, "You'll finally have time to focus on what you love about your business."
That's so much more compelling. Numbers are important, but emotions are what motivate people to take action.
And here's something I've learned. The pause between each section is just as important as the words. Give people a moment to process what you've said. Don't rush through it like you're trying to get it over with.
That's such good advice. The pause shows confidence. It says, "I believe what I'm telling you is worth thinking about."
Exactly. And if someone jumps in with a question during your pitch, that's actually a good sign. It means they're engaged. Don't feel like you have to finish your script before addressing their curiosity.
You know what else I love about this structure? It works for internal conversations too. When you're talking to your team, your investors, even your family about your business, you can use the same framework. It helps you stay focused and clear.
That's so true. And the more you practice this structure, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you won't even have to think about it. It'll just flow naturally from your passion and expertise.
And remember, this isn't about memorizing a script. It's about having a framework that supports your natural way of communicating. Your personality, your enthusiasm, your unique perspective, those are what make your pitch memorable, not perfect delivery. Now, let's talk about something that makes a lot of people nervous. What happens after you give your pitch? Because inevitably, people are going to ask questions, and some of them might be challenging.
Oh, this is such an important topic, David. I used to dread the question and answer part because I was afraid someone would ask something I couldn't answer perfectly. But I've learned that questions are actually a good sign. They mean people are interested.
That's such a great way to reframe it. Questions mean engagement. But I think a lot of us worry about not knowing the answer to something, especially when we're communicating in English and we're already feeling a bit uncertain.
I totally get that. And here's what I've learned. It's completely okay to say, "That's a great question," and then take a moment to think. You don't have to have lightning fast responses to everything.
And sometimes the most honest answer is, "I don't know, but I can find out for you." People respect honesty more than they respect someone who tries to fake their way through an answer.
Absolutely. And here's another thing. When someone asks a tough question or raises an objection, try to see it as a conversation, not a confrontation. They're not trying to tear you down, they're trying to understand.
That's such a helpful mindset shift. Instead of getting defensive, you can get curious. "That's interesting. What makes you think that?" Or, "Help me understand your concern better."
Yes. And remember, you don't have to convince everyone. Some people just aren't the right fit for what you're offering, and that's perfectly okay. Your job isn't to win every argument, it's to find the right people.
That takes so much pressure off, doesn't it? When you realize that not everyone needs to say yes, you can relax and just have genuine conversations.
And you know what? Some of the best business relationships I've built started with someone asking me a difficult question. They were testing whether I really knew my stuff, whether I could handle challenges. When I responded with honesty and curiosity instead of defensiveness, they became my biggest supporters.
That's such a powerful insight. The tough questions can actually be opportunities to build trust and credibility.
Exactly. And here's something I've noticed. When someone asks a question about price, they're usually not really asking about price. They're asking about value. They want to know if what you're offering is worth the investment.
That's so true. Instead of immediately defending your price or offering a discount, you can ask, what would make this feel like a good investment for you? Or what results would you need to see to feel good about this decision?
Perfect. You're shifting the conversation from cost to value, from what they're giving up to what they're gaining.
And here's something that's helped me a lot. I started collecting the questions people ask me most often. Now I can anticipate them and prepare thoughtful responses. Not scripted answers, but thoughtful ones.
That's brilliant. And you can even address common concerns in your pitch before people ask. You might be wondering about the time commitment, or I know some people worry about the learning curve.
Yes, it shows that you understand your audience and that you've thought through the challenges they might face.
And let's talk about body language for a moment. When someone asks a challenging question, our natural instinct might be to tense up or step back. But if you can lean forward slightly, maintain eye contact, and really listen, it sends a message that you welcome their questions.
That's such good advice. Your body language can either make someone feel heard and respected, or it can make them feel like they're being defensive.
And here's another tip. When someone asks a question that feels hostile or aggressive, try to find the reasonable concern underneath it. Maybe they're frustrated from a bad experience with someone else, or maybe they're just protecting themselves from making a mistake.
That's so compassionate. Instead of matching their energy, you can respond to their underlying need for security or understanding.
Exactly. And sometimes the best response to a difficult question is simply, I can see why you'd be concerned about that. Let me share how I handle that situation.
That acknowledges their concern without getting defensive. It's like saying, your worry is valid, and I've thought about this too.
And remember, everyone, the goal isn't to have all the answers. The goal is to have honest conversations that help people make good decisions. When you approach questions with that mindset, even the tough ones become opportunities to build trust.
Before we wrap up our core content, let's talk about something crucial: practice. But not the kind of practice where you memorize a script and recite it robotically. I'm talking about practice that builds real confidence.
This is so important, Julia. I used to practice my pitch in the mirror, trying to get every word perfect, but that actually made me more nervous because I was terrified of forgetting my lines.
Exactly. That kind of practice creates pressure, not confidence. Instead, I recommend practicing the structure we talked about: problem, solution, result, but with different words each time.
That's brilliant. So you're getting comfortable with the flow and the key ideas, but you're not locked into specific phrases. It feels more natural and spontaneous.
Right. And here's another type of practice that really helps. Practice with friendly people first. Start with family, friends, people who care about you and want to see you succeed.
Yes, and ask them to give you honest feedback. Not just, that was great, but specific things like, I didn't understand this part, or I'd love to know more about that.
And here's something that might surprise you. Practice in everyday situations. When someone asks what you do, use it as an opportunity to try out your pitch. The cashier at the grocery store, the person next to you on the bus. These are low-pressure ways to get comfortable.
I love that approach because it makes pitching feel less like a performance and more like a natural part of conversation. Plus, you'll be amazed how often casual conversations lead to unexpected opportunities.
Absolutely. And remember, every time you practice, you're not just working on your pitch, you're building confidence in your ability to communicate in English. That confidence will serve you in so many areas of your life.
And here's the beautiful thing. The more you practice, the more you realize that perfect isn't the goal. Connection is the goal. Understanding is the goal. And those things happen when you're authentic, not when you're perfect.
Now, let's listen to how this might sound in a real conversation.
That sounds good. This is always my favorite part.
Imagine Sarah, a freelance graphic designer, meeting Tom,
a small business owner at a local networking event. Sarah is still building her confidence in English, but she's learned to focus on clarity and connection rather than perfection.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I don't think we've met before.
Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm Tom. So, what brings you to this event?
Well, I'm a graphic designer, and I love meeting local business owners. You know how sometimes you look at a business and think, they have great products, but their marketing materials look like they were made in the 1990s?
Ha! Yes, I definitely know what you mean. Actually, I might be one of those businesses. I'm great at what I do, but the visual stuff, not so much.
I totally get that. That's exactly why I started my design business. I help small businesses create professional-looking materials without breaking the bank. Things like business cards, flyers, social media posts, stuff that makes you look as good as your work actually is.
That sounds really useful. I've been putting off updating my website because I have no idea where to start with the design side of things.
Oh, websites are actually one of my favorite projects. The way I see it, your website should work like a friendly conversation. When someone visits, they should immediately understand what you do and why they should care. No confusion, no complicated navigation, just clear, simple communication.
That makes so much sense. I think my current website confuses people more than it helps them. How do you usually approach a project like that?
Great question. I always start by asking about your customers. Who are they? What problems do they have? What makes them choose you over someone else? Once I understand that, the design almost creates itself. It's like the design should tell your story, not hide it.
I never thought about it that way. It sounds like you really understand the business side, not just the artistic side.
Exactly. I learned early on that pretty designs don't mean much if they don't help your business grow. My goal is always to create something that looks professional, but also gets results. More customers, more sales, more growth.
This is really interesting. Would you be open to grabbing coffee sometime to talk about my website? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I'd be happy to. Here's my card. Even if we don't end up working together, I'm always glad to help a fellow business owner think through their marketing challenges.
You know what strikes me most about Sarah's approach in that conversation? She wasn't trying to impress Tom with fancy language or complex concepts. She was simply sharing her passion and expertise in a way that felt natural and helpful.
That's exactly right, David. And notice how she turned a potentially awkward, so what do you do moment into a genuine connection. She used simple language, asked good questions, and focused on understanding Tom's needs rather than just promoting her services.
And here's something beautiful. By the end of that conversation, Tom was asking to meet with her again. That's the power of authentic communication. When you speak from the heart, using language that feels natural to you, people respond.
It makes me think about this question. What if we stopped trying to sound like someone else and started trusting our own voice? What if we believed that our authentic way of communicating, even if it's not perfect, is exactly what the right people need to hear?
That's profound, Julia, because the truth is, people don't connect with perfection. They connect with authenticity. They connect with someone who understands their struggles and can offer genuine help.
And for those of us building our confidence in English, this is especially important to remember. Your accent, your unique way of expressing ideas, your perspective as someone from a different culture, these aren't things to hide. They're part of what makes you interesting and valuable. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a challenge. This week, find one opportunity to practice your pitch, whether it's with a friend, a family member, or even just in front of a mirror. Remember, you're not aiming for perfection.
You're aiming for connection.
And remember what we talked about. Keep it simple, keep it genuine, and focus on the problem you're solving. Your voice, your story, your solution, they matter more than you realize.
If this episode helped you today, we'd love for you to share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it. Maybe it's a friend who's starting their own business, or someone who's been struggling to talk about their work with confidence.
And don't forget to subscribe to Confident Speaking Podcast. We're here with new episodes designed to help you build both your English skills and your confidence. Because when you combine language learning with personal growth, amazing things happen.
Next week, we're talking about something equally important. It's going to be a powerful episode that you won't want to miss. Until then, remember, your voice matters, your story matters, and the world needs what you have to offer. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself.
Thanks for joining us today. This is Julia and David from Confident Speaking Podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Take care. Bye.